The morning sun painted the sky orange over Seoul when Captain Kim Tae-ho first saw the alien ships. He stood on the roof of the military command center, drinking his coffee and watching the city wake up below. People were walking to work, cars moved through the streets, and everything seemed normal. Then the shadows came at first. Tae-ho thought it was just clouds moving across the sun. But clouds did not move in perfect formations. Clouds did not have smooth metal surfaces that reflected light like mirrors. Slout, and clouds definitely did not make the air itself hum with strange energy. The alien ships were huge. Each one was the size of a city block, hanging in the sky like floating islands. They were not ugly or scary looking. In fact, they were beautiful. Their surfaces curved like ocean waves, and patterns of blue and green light moved across them like living things. Lieutenant Park Min-ji ran up the stairs to the roof, her radio crackling with urgent voices. "Sir, we have a problem. Big problem. These ships just appeared everywhere. Tokyo, New York, London, Moscow. Every major city on Earth has them." Tae-ho put down his coffee cup. His hand was steady, but his mind was racing. What about our defenses? The orbital platforms? Gone, sir. All of them. Whatever these aliens used, it killed every satellite we had in space. We were completely blind up there. More ships appeared, smaller ones that came out of the big ones like eggs from a nest. They moved with smooth grace, floating down toward the city. Tae-ho raised his binoculars and studied them closely. The ships looked organic, almost alive. They pulsed with soft light, and their surfaces seemed to breathe. "They are not attacking yet," he said quietly. "They are studying us first." Min-ji nodded. "Intelligence says these are called the Vorthok. They have conquered dozens of worlds. They do not fight wars like we do. For them, conquest is art. Destroy civilization slowly, making it beautiful." Tae-ho felt a chill run down his spine. Through his binoculars, he could see the alien ships positioning themselves over important buildings. The National Museum, Seoul University, the ancient palaces. They were targeting everything that made humans human. Then the first beam of light came down. It was not an explosion. It was not fire or smoke. The beam simply touched the museum building and turned it into glass. The entire structure became transparent crystal, perfectly preserved, but completely dead. Inside, Tae-ho could see the displays and artifacts frozen forever, like insects in amber. "They are not trying to kill us," whispered Sergeant Lee Hyojin, who had joined them on the roof. "They are turning our world into their art gallery." More. Beams came down, the university became crystal, the palace became crystal. One by one, everything that represented human achievement was transformed into beautiful, lifeless art. The aliens were not destroying the buildings. They were preserving them, but taking away their meaning. People in the streets below were running now, but they had nowhere to go. Alien ships were everywhere, and their beams could reach anywhere. Some people stopped running and just stood still, staring up at the sky with empty eyes. "Sir, ground forces are coming down," reported Min-ji. Watching her radar screen, hundreds of them, Tae-ho focused his binoculars on the landing areas. The aliens were tall and thin, with smooth gray skin that changed colors like a chameleon. They moved like dancers, graceful and fluid. Each one carried a weapon that looked more like a piece of art than a gun. What struck Tae-ho most was their attitude. The aliens were not rushing or shouting or showing any emotion at all. They walked through the panicking crowds like tourists visiting a museum. Sometimes they would stop and point at something, their skin flashing different colors as they communicated. With each other, they are not afraid of us, Tae-ho realized. They do not see us as enemies. They see us as materials to work with. A group of human soldiers opened fire on the aliens near the Parliament building. The bullets bounced off their skin like rain off a window. One of the aliens turned toward the soldiers and made a gesture with his weapon. The soldiers stopped. Shooting, they did not fall down or die. They just stood there, their eyes blank, their weapons hanging loose in their hands. "Mind control?" breathed Hyojin. "They can control our minds." Tae-ho was watching something else. One of the controlled soldiers was crying. Tears ran down his face, even though his body was not his own anymore. The alien had taken his actions, but not his feelings. No, Tejo said slowly. They cannot control our minds completely. They can control our bodies. But something inside us is still fighting. As the day wore on, the pattern became clear. The aliens were not killing humans. They were collecting them. And groups of people were being herded into the crystal buildings like cattle into pens. The aliens seemed to be sorting them, choosing some for one purpose and others for another. By evening, the city was completely under alien control. The beautiful creatures walked through the streets, examining their new possessions. They had turned Seoul into a work of art. The crystal buildings and controlled humans as the main attractions. Tejo and his team had retreated to the underground bunkers beneath the command center. Around him, officers and soldiers sat in stunned silence. They had the most advanced military in the world, and it had been defeated in a single day without the aliens even breaking a sweat. "What do we do now, sir?" asked Minji. Her voice was small and scared. Tejo looked around at his people. They were defeated, broken, ready to give up. The aliens had won so easily that resistance seemed pointless. But as he watched his soldiers, sitting with their heads in their hands, Tejo felt something growing inside him. It was not fear. It was not despair. It was anger. Pure, cold, burning anger. The aliens thought they had one. They thought humans were just another species to be collected and displayed. They had studied human history and decided that humans would eventually give up and accept their fate. But they had made one mistake. They had destroyed everything that made humans human, and they expected humans to thank them for it. Tejo stood up, his back straight and his eyes hard. "We're going to fight. Sir, with respect, we tried that. It did not work. We tried to fight them like soldiers," Tejo said. "But they are not soldiers. They are artists, and we are not going to be. They're canvas." He walked to the communications console and activated the emergency broadcast system. His voice echoed through the underground tunnels where other survivors were hiding. "This is Captain Kim Tejo of the Earth Defense Force. The enemy has taken our cities and our people. They think they have one. But they do not understand what they have done. They have not conquered us. They have made us angry. And angry humans are the most dangerous creatures in the universe." The real war was about to begin. 3 months had passed since the aliens took Earth. The organized armies were gone. The governments had fallen. The cities were empty shells filled with crystal buildings and controlled humans. But in the dark places underground, something new was growing. Dr. Han Soyun crawled through the broken concrete and twisted metal that used to be the New Seoul National Research Institute. The place where she had worked for 10 years was now a pile of rubble, but she knew every inch of it. She knew where the important equipment was buried, and she knew how to get it out. Around her, 8 other survivors worked quietly in the darkness. They moved like ghosts, making no sound that might alert the alien patrols above. Each person had a job to do, and they did it without talking. They had learned that staying alive meant staying silent. "The power cells are still good," So-young whispered to Choi Jae-sung, showing him a small battery pack she had pulled from the wreckage. "If we can connect them to the explosive material you found, we can make bombs." Jae-sung nodded but said nothing. He had been a construction worker before the invasion, building homes and offices for families who were now dead or controlled by the aliens. His wife and daughter had been taken to one of the processing centers on the first day. He had not seen them since, but he knew they were not the same people anymore. The processing centers were the worst part of the alien occupation. The Vorthok had built them all over the city, tall crystal towers where they took humans to study and change them. The aliens called it cultural integration, but the survivors knew what it really was. The aliens were turning humans into living decorations for their art projects. "They think we are like the other species they conquered," said Nam Ji-hyun, who was watching the entrance to their hiding place. He had been a police officer before the invasion, and now he used his training to keep the group safe. "They expect us to give up and accept what they are doing to us." But humans were not giving up. Instead of breaking down and crying, they were getting angry. Every destroyed building made them angrier. Every lost friend made them angrier. Every day under alien control made them angrier. And angry humans were very dangerous. Saw Young connected wires to the battery pack, creating a simple communication device from old radio parts. She had been an electronics engineer before the invasion, and she knew how to build things that the aliens could not detect. Their advanced technology was looking for modern signals, not the primitive methods humans were using now. All groups. "This is Underground Base 7, she spoke into the device. "Are you ready for tonight's operation?" Voices came back through the static. Other groups of survivors hiding in sewers, basements, and ruins throughout the city. Each group had maybe 10 people, but together they were becoming an army. It's an army that fought in the shadows, striking at the aliens when they least expected it. "Base 4 is ready," came one voice. "We have the explosives set at the processing center." "Base 2 is in position," said another. "The alien patrol route is clear." "Base 9 has the backup plan ready," added a third voice. "If anything goes wrong, we can still hurt them." So Young smiled grimly. The aliens had made a mistake when they studied human behavior. They had looked at human history and seen that humans eventually surrendered when they were beaten. But they had not understood that humans only surrendered when they had something left to lose. These survivors had nothing left to lose. Their families were gone. Their homes were destroyed. Their world was conquered. All they had left was their anger, and they were going to use every bit of it. The plan was simple: hit the aliens hard, then disappear before they could fight back. Make them afraid to walk the streets of the cities they had conquered. Make them regret ever coming to Earth. "Remember," Young said into the radio, "we are not trying to win this war. We are trying to make them wish they had never started." Jason picked up his homemade bomb, a crude device made from construction materials and alien power cells. It was not pretty, but it would work. "For my wife and daughter," he said quietly. The others nodded. They all had people they were fighting for, people who were gone but not forgotten. The aliens could control human bodies, but they could not control human memories. And memories were what kept the anger burning. As the sun set over the conquered city, the survivors began to move. They crawled through tunnels and sewers, climbed through broken buildings, and ran across rooftops. They moved like rats through the ruins of their civilization. But they were rats with teeth. The aliens had turned Seoul into a beautiful museum, with crystal buildings and controlled humans as the main displays. But tonight, the exhibits were going to fight back. At exactly midnight, explosions lit up the sky all over the city. Processing centers burst into flames. Alien patrol posts crumbled to dust. Communication towers fell like trees. For 30 seconds, the night was filled with fire and smoke and the sound of human revenge. Then silence returned. The survivors melted back into the shadows, leaving the aliens to count their losses and wonder how primitive humans had managed to hurt them so badly in their underground hideout. So Young and her team listened to alien radio chatter through their captured equipment. The aliens sounded confused and angry. They had expected human resistance to fade away after a few months, but instead, it was getting stronger. They were asking for more troops, translated Kim Hyun-woo, who had learned to understand the alien language. "They say humans are not behaving like other conquered species." Young laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "Good. Let them send more troops. We'll find ways to hurt them too."
Aliens.
The aliens thought they had won the war when they conquered Earth's armies. But they were about to learn that the real war was just beginning. The war between the creatures who saw conquest as art and the creatures who saw resistance as duty. In the darkness beneath the ruins of Seoul, the human resistance was being born. It's not from hope, but from spite. Not from strength, but from anger. And anger, the survivors had learned, was a weapon that never ran out of ammunition. Commander Veltaran stood in his crystal command chamber. High above the conquered city of Seoul, the beautiful blue and green lights that flowed across his skin showed deep confusion. In 47 conquests across the galaxy, he had never encountered anything like the humans of Earth. His tactical display showed the damage from the latest human attacks. 17 processing centers destroyed, 43 patrol units eliminated. 2 communication hubs completely ruined. The numbers made no sense to his logical mind. The humans should have surrendered by now, said his second-in-command, Kalmyra. Her skin patterns shifted to show respectful puzzlement. By our calculations, their resistance should have ended 6 months ago. They have no military left. Have no government. They have no hope of victory. Velterran touched the display, zooming in on areas where human activity had been detected. The heat signatures showed small groups moving through the underground tunnels like insects through a nest. But these insects had teeth, and they were not afraid to bite. Send another patrol to Sector 7, he ordered. The humans hit our supply depot there yesterday. I want to know how they keep finding our weak points. Down in the sewers beneath Sector 7, Bae Sung-min led his team through the dark tunnels. The smell was terrible, but it was better than the clean, sterile smell of the alien-controlled areas above. Down here, the air still smelled human. Sung-min had been a taxi driver before the invasion. He knew every street in Seoul, every alley, every shortcut. Now that knowledge made him one of the most valuable people in the resistance. He could move through the city like a ghost, appearing wherever the aliens least expected him. The alien patrol is coming, whispered Yoon Dae-yoon. Listening to the captured alien radio they had modified to understand their communications. She had been a high school teacher before the war, teaching children about history and literature. Now she taught humans about alien weaknesses and how to exploit them. How many? Asked Sung-min, checking the explosive device strapped to his chest. It was a crude thing made from alien power cells and human engineering, but it would do the job. 12 of them. They are moving in formation Alpha 7, just like the manual says they should. Sung-min smiled grimly. The aliens were very predictable. They followed their training perfectly, which made them easy to trap. Humans had learned to study alien behavior the same way scientists studied animals in a zoo. Lee Min-young, take your team to the North Tunnel, Sung-min ordered. When they get close, we hit them from 3 sides. Remember, we are not trying to win a fair fight. We are trying to hurt them and get away. The plan was simple but effective. The aliens expected humans to fight like soldiers, following rules and trying to win battles. Instead, humans fought like angry animals, striking from the darkness and vanishing before the aliens could respond. The alien patrol entered the tunnel system exactly where the humans expected them to. They moved with their usual grace, their tall forms gliding through the cramped spaces with easy confidence. Their weapons glowed with soft light, beautiful and deadly. But the aliens made one critical mistake. They assumed that they're superior. Technology and training gave them an advantage in every situation. They did not understand that humans had given up trying to fight fair. When the explosions came, they came from everywhere at once. The tunnel ceiling collapsed, trapping half the patrol under tons of concrete and metal. Homemade bombs filled the air with deadly fragments. Human fighters appeared from hidden positions, firing crude weapons and disappearing back into the darkness. The entire battle lasted less than 2 minutes. When it was over, the alien patrol was destroyed, and the humans were gone. They left behind only empty tunnels and the bitter smell of explosives. In his command chamber, Velterran watched the patrol signals disappear from his display, one by one. His skin shifted to colors that showed deep frustration. The humans were not fighting like any species he had ever encountered. They were acting like animals, he said to Kalmyra. They attack without warning, strike at our weakest points, and run away before we can respond. There is no honor in their methods. Perhaps that is why they are effective, Kalmyra replied carefully. Other species we have conquered tried to fight us with honor. They followed their military traditions and lost. Humans seem to have abandoned all traditions except survival. Velterran studied the tactical reports more carefully. The humans were not trying to recapture territory or rescue their people. They were simply trying to make the occupation as costly as possible. Every day brought new attacks, new losses, new problems that required resources to solve. They are not fighting to win, he realized. They are fighting to make us lose. Down. In the tunnels, Sung-min led his team deeper into the underground network. They moved quickly but carefully, listening for any sign of alien pursuit. Behind them, the destroyed patrol burned in the collapsed tunnel, sending smoke signals to the surface that said one thing clearly: humans were still fighting. "Sir, we got all of them," reported Jin Wubin, a young man who had been studying engineering before the invasion. "And we captured 2 of their communication devices. Dayun can use them to listen to their orders." Sungmin nodded. Every small victory made the next attack possible. The humans were learning how their enemies thought, how they moved, how they could be hurt. It was slow work, but it was working. "The aliens think they understand us," he said to his team as they reached their safe house. "They studied our history and decided we would eventually give up like every other species they conquered. But they made one mistake." "What mistake?" asked Dayun. "They assumed that because we are weaker than them, we are the same as them. They think like predators. They expect their prey to run away or submit when caught." Sungmin's eyes were hard as stone. But they forgot that sometimes when you corner an animal, it does not run. Sometimes it attacks. Above them, the alien city continued its quiet existence. Crystal buildings reflected the alien ships in the sky. Controlled humans walked through the streets with empty eyes. Everything looked peaceful and beautiful. But in the darkness below, the real war continued. It was not a war between armies or governments. It was a war between 2 kinds of creatures: those who conquered because they were strong, and those who resisted because they were too angry to die quietly. The aliens were learning that strength was not always enough. 1 year had passed since the aliens conquered Earth, but Commander Velteron no longer felt like a conqueror. He stood in his crystal chamber, staring at reports that made no sense according to everything he knew about warfare. The humans should have been broken by now. Instead, they were getting stronger. "Sir, we have lost another supply convoy," reported Kelmyra, her skin showing patterns of deep concern. "The humans used some kind of acid to eat through our vehicle armor. Our soldiers were trapped inside when the metal dissolved." Voltaran felt something he had never experienced in 47 conquests: doubt. The humans were not fighting like any species he had encountered. They had turned their entire world into a weapon against the occupying forces. Every street corner could hide an ambush. Every building could contain a bomb. Every human could be an enemy. "How many soldiers have we lost this month?" he asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. 437, Kelmyra replied. "That is more than we lost in our last 10 conquests combined." Down in the ruins of what used to be Busan, Lee Dong-wook crouched behind a pile of broken concrete, watching an alien patrol through his binoculars. The aliens moved carefully now, checking every shadow, scanning every doorway. They had learned to be afraid of the dark places where humans hid. Dong-wook smiled grimly. Fear was a weapon humans understood very well. For months, they had been teaching the aliens to fear every moment they spent on Earth. "Kim Na-jin, what are they saying?" he whispered to the young woman beside him. She had been a language student before the invasion. Now she spent her time listening to alien communications through their captured equipment. "They are asking for backup," she translated. "They say humans have been seen in this area, and they do not want to patrol alone anymore." Dong-wook nodded. The aliens had stopped sending small patrols months ago. Now they moved in large groups, wasting soldiers on simple tasks because they were too afraid to split up. Every change in alien behavior was a small victory for the resistance. Park. "Sujin, are the charges ready?" he asked the former chemistry teacher who had become their explosives expert. "Ready, sir. This batch uses the new formula we learned from the Soul Group. It burns hotter and longer than anything we made before." The resistance had grown beyond individual groups hiding in basements. There was a network that stretched across the entire planet. Groups shared information, tactics, and technology. Through hidden communication channels, what one group learned, all groups learned. The aliens had made another mistake in their occupation strategy. They had assumed that destroying human governments would leave humans unable to organize. But humans did not need governments to hate their enemies. They organized around their anger, and anger was something every human had in abundance. Movement. On the east side whispered Nam Hoseok, who was watching the other approach routes. 12 aliens, moving in formation. They are scared. Dongwook could see it too. The aliens moved differently now than they had a year ago. Before, they had glided through the streets like they owned the world. Now, they moved like soldiers in enemy territory, because that was exactly what they were. The trap was simple, but effective. The aliens would follow their standard patrol route through the bombed-out shopping district. When they reached the center of the kill zone, explosives hidden in the rubble would detonate simultaneously. Any survivors would face crossfire from human fighters, positioned in the surrounding buildings. But the real purpose of the attack was not to kill aliens. It was to send a message to every alien on Earth. You are not safe here. You will never. Be safe here. Here they come, Dongwook said into his radio. Around the district, 15 humans prepared to fight 12 aliens with superior technology and training. A year ago, it would have been suicide. Now it was just another day's work. The aliens entered the kill zone, moving in perfect formation, their weapons ready, their senses alert. They had learned to be cautious in human territory, but caution was not enough to save them. The explosions came from below, above, and all sides at once. The aliens' formations scattered as their point soldiers disappeared in clouds of fire and shrapnel. The survivors tried to find cover, but every piece of cover had been booby-dash trapped. Human fighters appeared on rooftops and in windows, firing crude weapons that shot metal fragments instead of energy beams. The aliens returned fire with their advanced weapons, but humans had learned not to stay in one place long enough to be targeted. In 3 minutes, the battle was over. 11 aliens were dead, and 1 was badly wounded. The humans had lost 2 fighters, but they considered that an acceptable exchange. Dead aliens could not patrol human streets or guard human prisoners as the smoke cleared. Dongwook looked down at the alien bodies scattered through the rubble. A year ago, these creatures had seemed like gods descending from the sky to reshape the world according to their will. Now they looked like what they really were: invaders who had made the mistake of thinking humans would accept their fate quietly. Collect their equipment, he ordered his team. Send a message to all groups. Tell them we got another full patrol. Tell them the aliens are running out of soldiers to waste on us. Back in his command chamber, Veltarin received the report of the latest defeat with growing desperation. His tactical advisors were suggesting that they abandon the outer districts and concentrate their forces around the most important installations. It was the strategy of a losing army, and everyone knew it. Sir, the council is asking for a progress report, Kelmyra said carefully. They want to know when the cultural integration project will be completed. Veltarin almost laughed, but the sound would have been bitter. Cultural integration required compliant subjects, not an entire species that treated every day as an opportunity for revenge. The humans had turned their conquered world into a grinding war of attrition that was bleeding the occupation forces dry. Tell the council that humans are not responding to integration as expected, he said finally. Tell them we need more time, but time was exactly what the aliens did not have. Every day brought new attacks, new losses, new evidence that the conquest of Earth was becoming too expensive to maintain. The humans were teaching their conquerors a lesson that no military academy in the galaxy taught. Sometimes the price of victory was higher than the value of the prize, in the ruins below. Human resistance fighters prepared for another night of war. They had learned that they could not defeat the aliens in open battle, but they could make the aliens regret ever setting foot on their world. And regret, they had discovered, was a weapon that grew stronger with time. 18 months after the invasion began, Commander Veltarin stood before the High Council's communication display, knowing his career was about to end. The holographic forms of the council members flickered with colors that showed disappointment and anger. Behind him, his command chamber displayed the grim statistics of Earth's occupation. Thousands of soldiers lost, countless resources wasted, and still no end to human resistance in sight. Explain to us, Commander, why the human integration project has failed so completely, spoke Council Leader Morthok, his ancient form radiating cold authority. Your reports promised that this species would provide excellent material for our cultural collections. Instead, you have given us nothing but military casualties and resource drain. Veltarin's skin shifted to patterns of respectful submission. But inside, he felt something close to human anger. The council had not been on Earth's surface, had not watched their soldiers disappear one by one into the darkness of human tunnels. They had not seen what these strange creatures could do when they decided to fight without hope of victory. Honored Council, the humans are unlike any species we have previously encountered. Their psychological profile does not match our predictive models. When faced with overwhelming force, they do not surrender. They become more dangerous. In the underground networks of what used to be Seoul, Kun-Su listened to the intercepted alien communications with growing excitement. For months, his team had been decoding alien messages, learning their language, understanding their thoughts. Today's transmission was different. Today the aliens sounded desperate. Lim Hae-won, are you getting this? He whispered to the former university student who operated their communication equipment. Aliens are talking about withdrawal. They're actually considering leaving Earth. Hae-won nodded, her fingers moving quickly over the makeshift controls. The signal is clear. They're discussing resource allocation and strategic priorities. It sounds like their leaders are questioning whether Earth is worth the cost of occupation. Kyung-soo felt a surge of something he had not experienced in over a year: hope. Not hope for easy victory, but hope that their strategy of making Earth too expensive to hold was actually working. The strategy had evolved over 18 months of constant warfare. Human resistance groups had learned to coordinate their attacks, to cause maximum disruption with minimum resources. They had studied alien behavior patterns, identified weak points in alien technology, and developed tactics specifically designed to make the occupation as costly as possible. Jung Minho, what is the status of the poison gas attack? Kung-Soo asked the former chemistry professor who had become their chief weapons designer. Ready for deployment? We have identified the alien breathing apparatus vulnerabilities. This gas will not kill them, but it will make them very sick for many days. Sick soldiers cannot patrol our streets. The humans had learned that they did not need to kill every alien. They just needed to make every alien wish they had never come to Earth. Every day of sickness was a day the aliens could not do their jobs. Every day they could not do their jobs was a day the occupation became more expensive. Back in his command chamber, Velterin reviewed the latest casualty reports with growing despair. His forces had been reduced by more than half since the occupation began. The humans had developed new weapons almost every week, each one more cruel and effective than the last. Sir. The processing centers are requesting additional security, reported Kelmyra. The humans have been contaminating the food supplies with substances that cause permanent nerve damage to our species. Our medical facilities are overwhelmed. Velterin closed his eyes. The humans had somehow learned to synthesize chemicals that specifically targeted alien biology. They were not just fighting for their freedom anymore. They were fighting to make alien soldiers suffer in ways that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. How many soldiers have requested transfer? Off Earth, he asked quietly. 3,412, Kelmyra replied. Nearly 40% of our remaining forces. The number hit Velterin like a physical blow. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen soldiers request transfer away from a conquered world. The idea was almost unthinkable. Broken that rule just like it had broken every other rule of civilized warfare. On the surface, human resistance fighters moved through the abandoned streets of Seoul like predators hunting prey. The roles had reversed completely from the early days of the invasion. Now it was the aliens who moved in fear, checking every shadow, jumping at every sound. Kim Seojun led a team of 12 fighters toward the main alien command post. They moved with the confidence of people who had learned that their enemies could be hurt, could be frightened, could be beaten. The weapons they carried were crude but effective: chemical bombs, acid launchers, poison darts, designed to cause maximum suffering. Remember, we are not trying to capture the building, Seojun said to his team. We are trying to make them afraid to stay in it. The attack came at dawn when the alien guards were changing shifts. Human fighters appeared from sewers, rooftops, and hidden tunnels, launching their chemical weapons at the crystal walls of the command post. The building itself was too strong to destroy, but the aliens inside would spend the next week choking on poisonous gas as his team melted back into the ruins. Sujin allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Each attack sent the same message. To the aliens, Earth will never be yours. Every day you stay here will be worse than the last. In his command chamber, Veltarin made the decision that would end the occupation of Earth. He activated his communicator and sent a message that would travel across the galaxy to the High Council. Honored leaders, I am formally requesting permission to abandon the Earth Project. The humans cannot be integrated into our cultural collection. It cannot be controlled, cannot be managed, and cannot be broken. This world is a loss. It's a response. It took several hours to arrive, but when it came, it was exactly what Veltarin had hoped for. Permission granted.
Ow.
Begin immediate evacuation of all personnel and equipment. Earth is to be classified as a hazardous world, unsuitable for future operations. For the first time in 18 months, Veltarin felt something like relief. Soon, he would be off this nightmare world, away from the humans who had turned conquest. Into a living hell, the evacuation would take weeks to complete, but the order had been given. The aliens were leaving Earth not because they had been defeated in battle, but because they had learned that some victories were too expensive to be worth winning. The final alien ships lifted off from Earth on a gray morning in October, their beautiful forms rising through the clouds like monuments to a failed dream. Captain Kim To-ho stood on the roof of the same building where he had first seen them arrive, but everything else had changed. The city below was in ruins, the sky was empty of human aircraft, and most of the people he had known were dead or forever changed. But the aliens were leaving. After 18 months of the most brutal occupation in human history, they were giving up and going home. Sir, the last transport just cleared the atmosphere, reported Lieutenant Park Min-ji. Now a colonel, after surviving longer than most military officers. Her voice carried no celebration, just tired relief. Long-range sensors showed the entire fleet moving away from Earth. Taeho lowered his binoculars and looked around at the other survivors who had gathered to watch the departure. There were maybe 30 people on the roof, all that remained of a military unit that had once numbered in the thousands. Their faces showed the same mixture of exhaustion and disbelief that he felt. "Is it really over?" asked Sergeant Lee Hae-ojin. Her question barely a whisper. Before Taeho could answer, a voice crackled through their radio. It was Dr. Han So-young, broadcasting from the underground command center that had coordinated human resistance for the past year. All resistance units. This is underground command. We have confirmation from multiple sources. The aliens have abandoned Earth. Repeat, the aliens have abandoned Earth. The war is over. The war is over. The words seemed impossible after so many months of endless fighting. Taeho had gone to sleep every night for 18 months wondering if he would live to see another dawn. Now he was being told that he could stop fighting, stop hiding, stop looking over his shoulder for alien patrols. Around the world, similar scenes were playing out in the ruins of every major city. Human survivors emerged from their hiding places like animals coming out of hibernation. They moved cautiously at first, hardly daring to believe that the constant threat of alien attack was really gone. In the tunnels beneath Seoul, Choi Jae-sung put down his homemade weapons and looked around at the cramped space that had been his home for over a year. The walls were covered with maps, weapon designs, and photos of dead friends. Everything in the tunnel was a reminder of the price humans had paid for their freedom. "We did it," he said to Nam Jae-hyun, who was sitting beside a radio that had gone silent for the first time in months. "We actually did it. We made them leave." Gi-yeon nodded slowly. He had been keeping track of alien casualties for the resistance, marking each small victory on a chart that now covered an entire wall. The numbers told the story of human persistence. Thousands of small attacks, hundreds of destroyed alien positions, dozens of major operations that had slowly bled the occupying forces dry. "They did not leave because we beat them," he said quietly. "They left because we made staying here cost more than it was worth." That was the truth that would be written in the history books if humans ever had the chance to write history books again. Earth had not been liberated by a great battle or a brilliant strategy. It had been freed by the simple refusal of its people to accept their fate quietly. Across the city, other resistance fighters were having the same realization. Lee Dongwook stood in the ruins of Busan, watching alien equipment left behind in the hasty evacuation. The aliens had abandoned millions of dollars worth of technology rather than spend another day on a world that had become a nightmare for them. Oh Kyung-soo found alien food supplies, medical equipment, and communication devices scattered through their former command posts. The evacuation had been so rushed that the aliens had taken only what they absolutely needed to survive the journey home. They were afraid, said Lim Hae-won, examining an alien personal communicator that was still receiving messages from the departing fleet. The messages say they are reporting Earth as a plague world, dangerous to all civilized species. Kyung-soo smiled grimly. Let them spread that message across the galaxy. Let every alien species know that Earth was not a world to be conquered. It was a world to be avoided in the weeks that followed. Human survivors began the long process of rebuilding their civilization. It would take years to repair the damage, decades to replace what had been lost. Millions of people were dead, and millions more had been changed by the alien experiments. Earth would never be the same, but Earth was free. Captain Taeho spent his days helping to organize the reconstruction efforts. There was so much work to do: clearing rubble, finding survivors, establishing new governments, rebuilding communication networks. But every task was easier because it was being done by choice, not under alien orders. At night, he often returned to the roof where he had watched the invasion begin. Sometimes other survivors joined him there, people who needed to remind themselves that the ships in the sky were gone forever. Do you think they will come back? Minji asked him one evening as they watched the sunset paint the sky. The same orange color it had been on the morning the aliens arrived. Taeho shook his head. No. We taught them something they did not know before. We taught them that some species cannot be conquered, no matter how advanced the conquerors are. The lesson had been expensive. Earth's population was a fraction of what it had been before the invasion. The great cities were ruins. The environment was damaged. The survivors were scarred in ways that would never fully heal. But the lesson had been learned. Across the galaxy, other alien species would hear the story of the small blue world that had driven off the mighty Vorthok through sheer determination. Some would laugh at the idea that primitives could defeat advanced conquerors. Others would mark Earth's location on their star charts and give it a wide berth. Humanity had discovered something important about itself during those 18 months of hell. They had learned that survival was not about being the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. Sometimes survival was simply about being too angry to die quietly, too stubborn to accept defeat, and too determined to let anyone else decide their fate. The war was over, but the memory would endure. Earth was free, and it would stay free. Because its people had proven they would rather burn down everything than live as slaves. In the end, that was the only lesson that mattered.